Hi, my name's Shane and welcome to Skyline Psychology. Today I'd like to present a framework that we can use to explore psychological wellness. Once you see how it looks, you can use it as a bit of a checklist to see how you stack up in each of those domains. The framework is called the Biopsychosocial Model, and it's comprised of three circles or spheres that overlap each other like a Venn diagram, with the overlapping part in the center expressing psychological wellness or the manifestation of some mental health issue if things aren't going so well. As you may have guessed from the name, the three spheres are biological, psychological, and social. Though I like to add environmental to the social sphere too, because it isn't just about who you're around, but also the environment you find yourself in. Let's jump straight into an example. We'll clear this Venn diagram here and put in the center a nice big A for anxiety. So using this framework, let's see what might be contributing to anxiety. Let's start with the biological sphere. In this sphere, we're concerned with the biological aspects that contribute to our mental wellness. First up, we have genetics or inherited vulnerability. As it turns out, there is some genetic contribution to the expression and experience of anxiety. Next, we have the activation of brain circuits, neurotransmitters, and neurohormonal systems that contribute to the vulnerability and expression of anxiety. For example, some of us have higher base levels of personality trait neuroticism or are just more highly strung. It also goes by the term temperament. This can contribute to anxiety as it lessens the amount of extra stress we can tolerate before we present with symptoms. Next, we have psychoactive substances. These are substances that we might take, legal or otherwise, that have the potential to impact our experience of anxiety. For example, if you consume a lot of caffeine or use other stimulants like nicotine, these stimulant psychoactives can have a magnifying effect on the experience of anxiety. Levels of arousal, including frequent fight or flight responses or the kind of overoxygenation caused by overbreathing, can have an impact on your anxiety levels too. And finally, the all-important trifecta of diet, exercise, and sleep. If any of these aspects are poorer than usual, anxiety can be worsened. The next sphere we'll look at is the psychological sphere. This one is interested in the way we make meaning of the world and all things psychological. And there are aspects in this sphere that can contribute to the experience of anxiety. First up, we have our general attention bias to threat. Given we're vulnerable creatures and bent on survival, we tend to be very good at picking out the things in our environment that might be dangerous to us. And linked to this is our general fear of the unknown, since unknown situations may bring with them unforeseen dangers. Another major one is unhelpful self-talk or thinking styles, including personalization, black and white thinking, and an anxiety favorite, catastrophizing. Added to this are the thoughts that physical symptoms of panic and anxiety are catastrophic. Then we have avoidant coping strategies that reinforce anxiety, like avoiding situations or people and getting short-term relief at the expense of strengthening anxious thoughts in the long term. In this example, you can start to see the crossover between the spheres, as this one includes the social environmental sphere in terms of where we choose to hide away, and the psychological sphere where we feel the relief and the reinforcement of the behavior. The third sphere is the social environmental sphere. This is the one concerned with the people around us, our environments, and how we relate to all of it. If we find that our social interactions lessen for whatever reason, this can leave us feeling vulnerable, lonely, and more anxious. Stressful events can leave us vulnerable to anxiety also. Say we have too much on our plate at work or in life, or we start burning out. Maybe we fight a lot with people in our lives or experience a lot of conflict for whatever reason. Maybe we've got an overbearing boss or a difficult family member who's testing our patience and limits. These can all contribute to the expression of anxiety. How do these all work together? Let's have a look at the following example. So let's start with the psychological sphere. Imagine that we have the belief that physical symptoms of panic are catastrophic, dangerous, and unacceptable. Now imagine you're busy working and you didn't get a good night's sleep. So you've been hammering coffees all day. You're in the office and you're on your third or fourth cup. Then you notice a flutter in your chest and your hands start to get jittery. Is it anxiety? Is it panic? Is it a heart attack? You worry that things could get much worse and you start to catastrophize about the symptoms. This must be a heart attack. I have to get rid of this feeling. This is terrible. I'm going to die. So then you notice that your symptoms are getting worse in classic struggle switch fashion. So this biological, psychological interaction then has an impact on your social environmental sphere. You suddenly get up and go to the toilet to calm down. You notice when you're alone that you feel calmer and less stressed. You decide to go home for the day and stay home for the rest of the week. And notice you feel less anxious when you do that. You go on avoiding calls from friends and family in fear that you might have your symptoms returning, since they seem to get worse when thinking about being around people. And you definitely feel better when no one is around. You start to isolate, and for a while, you have relief and your anxiety lays low, but you start feeling lonely and disconnected. You start to wonder if anyone actually likes you or cares about you, since no one's calling anymore to check in, even though initially you avoided the calls. Maybe everyone hates you. Hopefully the made-up example above highlights how these spheres influence each other in the maintenance of something like anxiety, and why this framework appears like a Venn diagram with overlapping spheres. The good news is that this can also work in reverse. So if we bolster and buffer our habits and behaviors in each of these spheres, we can lift up our mental health. So let's try and turn the example above to something better. Imagine that you start practicing better sleep hygiene, which will include cutting out coffee, or at least cutting down, and include rituals to improve sleep habits, like no screen time for an hour or two before bed. You start using the breathing retraining technique and slow your breathing rate down and feel more relaxed more often. This improves parts in your biological sphere. You then listen to some relaxation tracks, including tracks that help you with positive self-talk. For example, you remember hearing in another amazing YouTube video that 90% of the things I worry about never come to pass, and when they do come to pass, I handle them and survive. You get out some paper or a nice notebook and you start to journal what's going on in your life and start to focus on instances where things were tough, but you made it. You start challenging some of those catastrophic thoughts and realize that anxiety is safe and tolerable by the body, and no one ever dies from panic. This gives you some good stuff in the psychological sphere to lift you up. And then you reach out to a close friend or a family member, invite them over, watch a movie together, eat a meal. You feel less alone, more connected, and not as self-conscious. Also, cooking for someone else gives you something to focus on that isn't you. Now think of this in your own life. When you consider the three spheres, are there things you can do in any of those spheres to bolster your mental health? Are there tools, skills, techniques you know about that could be useful in those spheres to help buffer you from poor mental health or experiences like anxiety? If there are, Then start gradually incorporating them into your day and notice the difference for yourself. Make sure you diarize the changes because our minds can be very poor record keepers. Sometimes I don't even remember what I had for breakfast, let alone what my mood was like at 12:45 p.m. on Monday 3 weeks ago. I hope you found this exploration of mental wellness via the biopsychosocial model interesting. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments below. Like the video if you like the video. Subscribe for more videos like this in the future. As usual, call or email us for appointments, and I'll see you in the next one.